Hey guys, Happy New Year. It's 2026. This is just a quick update for my video last year. Hadn't played a whole lot since that last video came out. Changes were made to the game last year that kind of broke some of my stuff, and I just didn't feel like going back and changing it. But I got the bug to play again. Some subscribers hit me up for some questions, and so I went in and looked. So a couple changes from the previous thing. If you've played this game a lot, then you already know this, but I'm going to go through it anyways because it caused me a bunch of grief. First of all, the color mixing changed. The way they made white changed from before, and that caused me to go back and have to redo all my color manifolds. And so I spent some time because also reached a better understanding of the flow rates between the launchers and the pipes. I had a lot of extra pipes that didn't need to be there, and it was cluttering things up and causing the building counts to go up. So redid all my manifolds. It's still not probably as compact as it can be, but it's a lot better than it was before. Got all the mixers going onto this section. I don't have a picture. You can go back and look at the other video, see what it used to look like. It's a lot more clean now. So again, that was a big change. I had to go back and do all those. Another change that affected the way my Make Anything machines work was that there was they added a tri-level ability on the space map, which they didn't have before, and that broke all of the interconnections and bridges and things like that before. So I had to go back and redo all of those to get my colors working again. And so those were two of the biggest changes that I had to go back and fix. For whatever reason, my save games were all broken too. So I had a few save games that were more recent that saved my bacon because it it really lost a lot. I had a couple save games. All my milestones disappeared. I had milestones for all the different milestones, pretty big production lines for all those, and I had made a save game with nothing but the random operator levels because the frame rates were so bad when you had it all running at the same time that I had to just kind of split off my two games. Well, the games that had all my milestones in it, it broke all those save games and I can't retrieve them. If anybody knows a way to get those back, let me know. Um, but I want to go ahead and focus on getting my Make Anything machines back running again. And I did do a couple milestones, which I'll show you in a little while. But the other thing that made it really hard to recover a lot of the stuff after not having looked at it for a year is all the labels it lost everything that was in a label. And so all my things that had labels before, actually, I almost got sidetracked. Oh, yeah, there's one of my old color manifolds. Look how messy that one was compared to what I've got now. Looks cool, but all of that is completely redundant. You see, it was like 3, 3, and then that, whereas now I got it down to just that, which is quite a bit more compact. Anyway, back on topic. Um, all the labels that told me what my logic was doing on a lot of these things were completely they just said label. So I lost all of that. So I had no idea what a lot of my logic was doing. I had to go back and kind of refigure it out. Which, if you haven't played for a while and you were doing this, it's easy to lose track of where you were. So I spent about 2 weeks here over the last couple of weeks over the holiday break. Hope everybody had a good break refiguring out a lot of stuff. So just to do a quick recap, um, the I have two pipelines going, one for op 0, the random operator 0, and one for operator 1, random operator 1. The main difference between these two, I'll show you the one I'm working on right now for operator 0 is in current progress. This is what it looks like. And typically operator 0, at least as far as I've gotten, has no crystals, but it does have pins. And so we'll come back to that in a little while. And then operator 1 typically has crystals, and because of certain ways crystals are handled, it also has to have pins. So operator 1 is probably a little bit more multi-purpose than operator 0, but there are certain differences that I'm not going to sidetrack on right now, but we'll get back to in a minute. So for operator random operator 0, the biggest thing was to get the pin pushing working correctly again. This is one of the most awkward things in the game is pin pushing, and mainly because pins do not stick to the bottom of the shape that they're used to pin. In other words, they can fall down if a pin push layer is stacked on top of another layer and there's a void underneath one of the pin will drop down. And so that creates problems when trying to analyze the different layers and construct them, and it increases the difficulty of trying to find a generic way to do things. So one of the ways that I got around that is I use a top-down methodology when I'm doing operator 0 stuff with pins. I just found that that worked a little bit better. I think you could probably do it the other way too. I know you can because I've done it the other way, but this way seemed to do it a little bit more straightforward. It all starts with get lost a little bit. The base logic right here. So this is the when a random operator channel. Oh, and they redid all of the transmitters, which is a good thing because now I've got way more channels. You used to be restricted to just the colors for how many channels you could use. Now it's just by number, so you can have an arbitrary number of data channels, which really opens up a lot of possibilities for other stuff. But again, another rabbit hole I don't want to go down right this minute. So when a new operator comes in, the first thing I do is subdivide it into its component layers. All right, this one happens to have 4 layers, and when you do the top layer first, you can shave off a layer. This is what this item does right, or this virtual building does right here. And so it just looks at each layer in isolation and assigns that layer to a channel. All right, so that's global for that random operator, and there's one for operator 1 here. I'll go into that in a minute. And so come back over here, because those channels are being broadcast. um, just real quick before I jump into that, if it's not obvious, what I've done is create a rail system that delivers shapes and colors to all these different machines, and each one of the machines has this in common. It has colors coming in, and it has all 4 different shapes coming in. And I can make a separate video on how that's all done, but essentially it just provides these modules with whatever colors they need and whatever shapes they need. So this section right here pretty much on all the machines is identical, and all it's doing is just providing those shapes. The meat and potatoes of the Make Anything machines are these cartridges right here, and just as a general overview, you can kind of tell that there's 4 more or less equal modules, and each one of those is dedicated to working on a layer of the particular shape that's inbound. Let me go ahead and claim that real quick. Um, so with the operator 0 top level, there's a potential. One of the things that gave me fits on this thing more than anything else was the potential to have pins that are sticking out on top. And so you can see on this shape right here, pins sticking out the top. There's only one way to get pins sticking out the top. That's to have a layer that has been pin pushed dropped on a 3-layer stack already, and it evaporates the top layer and leaves the pin sitting there. And so that gave me issues at first. What I decided to do to get around that was basically have 2 pipelines here, and I made use of the bottom layer here. I'm going to bring that out in a second, but I just want to quickly go through what this looks like. Whoops, I hate that. All right, hey, come on, quit it. There we go. So because channel 0 is showing that this layer is basically just 2 pins, nothing is coming through, nothing is getting built, nothing is getting painted. Again, top level stuff. And so that's where this guy comes into play down here. So this guy right here, and I think this might be, well, I'll just let you peruse it a little bit. Essentially what's happening with this layer here is that again, it's looking at all the layers at the same time. Now this is a weird one because it has to tolerate drop pins. If it was just a simple matter of figuring out where the pins on the top layer is, it would be a lot smaller logic. But what this has to do is look at the shape from the top down and determine if any pins are showing as looked at from the top. And they don't have to be on the same level, because a pin could drop from the top level all the way down to the very bottom. And so this has to account for that when determining what shape the sacrificial layer has to be at the top. And so if you're following me so far, what it's doing is it's looking at a quad stack. So this would be a pin on top all by itself. This would be a pin that's underneath a void, all right, like on layer 3 if looking for the bottom up. And then this one would be vacant, vacant pin, and this would be vacant, vacant, vacant pin. So this would be a pin that dropped all the way to the bottom. This would be a pin that dropped to the second layer. This would be a pin that dropped to the third layer, and this would be a pin that's hanging out on top. And it has to do that with all 4 quads. And so what it does is it looks for those, and then it opens up one of these data channels, and that opens up a stacker. And so this is just being fed random shapes. Doesn't even matter what shapes they are, because they're going to get sacrificed anyways when it's finally stacked. And then it creates a sacrificial layer and pin pushes it with the same geometry as what's on the shape. And so you can see what's coming out here, if I zoom in a little bit, is that it's a two sharps with pin push layer. And so what that's going to do is become my top layer, and the sharps go away when it's dropped, but that won't happen till later. And so that's how we create a sacrificial layer to create top pins. That's all this is for, is just creating a sacrificial layer for top pins. And it has to handle the drop pins as well, which was not fun to figure out, but I finally got it. That's just for the top layer. Backing out now, let me go back up to the top. I'll put it back on the main level. After that, it's essentially just rinse and repeat. We look at each layer in turn. This would be layer 1, or the top -1, and it's got a shape there. Creates the shape, puts it through the painter, paints the individual quads as necessary, and then constructs the layer. And if necessary, pin pushes it, but not going to get into the rest of the pin pushing logic here, because it's kind of weird. Like, this is layer 1, which is actually the top -1, but you have to look at the next layer down to see whether this layer was pin pushed or not. So that's where things get a little bit sticky, and I'm not convinced that I've covered every base, but it's been working with minor tweaks. And then we get all the way back down here to, once all 4 layers have been constructed individually, they all come together down here. This is just a little thing where I can kind of keep an eye on them. And then this logic had to be completely redone right here. So what this is, this stacker logic, the final stacker logic, this took me a while to figure out because of some weird edge cases. So I'm going to just zoom in on this real quick in case I need to look at it later if they nuke my save games again. So if it's pins, then there should be a sacrificial layer to stack with, so only no should disable stacker. In other words, this is only pins, but we wouldn't want to disable the stacker because there's actually something there. And then the other ones are a little bit different. We can't enable a stacker if there's no layer there. And so if the layer consists of pins and nulls, then we disable the stacker altogether and stuff just bypasses. And so eventually it stacks them all up together. We do a quick truth check at the end, and then they're off and running. And so that's how operator 0 has been working, and it's doing pretty well. I had to there was a couple that popped up that didn't work initially when I got it running again, that I had to go back and fix it. I may run into problems again with it, but I'll let you know if I do. But it seems to be working pretty well. So operator, and this is just a copy of it so I can have 2. Operator 1 operates a little bit differently. Jump back out to the operator 1 master controller, or whatever you want to call it. So this one acts a little different. This is a bottom up, alright, and so and originally this is kind of how I did it, so this predates the other one. But the bottom up way has advantages for crystallization. So for crystallizing, you have a couple limitations. You can't drop crystal layers on top of another layer or they break. You can't split them once they're already laid, and so there's a couple requirements for crystals that are different. So we're going to make this one for, like a layer cake from the bottom up. And so the first thing I have to do is split the layers backwards, which is just weird, but I guess I could have probably done it the other way, whatever. Um, but this way was came first. That's probably why the logic looks a little weird. I probably could just change my channels and do it the exact same way as I did it before. But this way was already sitting there. So just kind of, take it with a grain of salt. I was still learning my way when I put this together. But it does get the layers out correctly. And this is kind of the way the channel assignments go. So base plus 3, base plus 2, base plus 1, and then the base. And 5, 6, 7, 8 are the channels. So doing that, going back over here, go back up to this one. So with the added complexity of crystallization, we have to do things in a slightly different order. Now, gathering up all the pieces and parts, that still is the same. I don't have provisions for, well, I do have provisions for top pins, but they come later. And really, because top pins are used if you want to crystallize the top layer, you have to have pins showing. No other way will work as far as I know. So again, we're going to take shapes, we're going to take colors, we're going to make the base shape minus the crystal, of course, and we're going to put that through the painter if necessary. And then when it comes out, it'll go through the crystallizer. And I redid my crystallizer too. I'm really kind of proud of this. It got a lot more compact than it was before. This one doesn't take up near as much space, and the logic is a little bit more straightforward. Oh, I was really having fun with this too. I was kind of trying to make a little display of the crystal layers over here, and it works. And I made it kind of like look like a flower. I was pretty happy with that, except for it's like 90 degrees off. So maybe 180 actually. So I have to go back and redo that because it doesn't exactly look like that, but it works just fine. And so what we're doing here is we're setting the layer through for crystallization. Ratios all correct. Ratios of colors correct. And I managed to get it all on one small platform here, which was I was pretty happy about that because it used to be kind of ginormous. And so no problem with a standard kind of crystal layer with some shapes and a little bit of crystal. And you can stack on top of a crystal, you just can't drop a crystal. So that one is fine. So when we go to the next layer up, this one, again, a couple shapes and a little bit of crystal. This is a pretty straightforward shape, so no big deals here. And then it comes in here, gets created. Now, before it has a chance to go out and be crystallized, we have to check for if the previous layer was all crystal, then that you have to pin push this one, and then you've got to be able to crystallize underneath it. Now there's a couple edge cases where this may or may not work, but I haven't encountered any of them yet. And so what you wind up with is, if I wish I had a picture of this earlier, if you have a layer with all crystal, that means that there's a pin pushed layer on top of it, and then the crystal was filling in where the pins were. And that has happened a couple times, and we are tolerant of that now. It will work, but this shape just doesn't have that. Then we've got to have some checks and balances to make sure that if they're all crystal, we don't stall out our stackers. One of the toughest parts about this game is getting the stacker logic correct, because if your stacker logic is broken, then your pipelines will stall out. And so you've got to cover all the bases on that, and sometimes the logic gets a little bit convoluted for it. So then it goes through another crystallizer, and that process is repeated basically for all of the layers until you get to the top layer. And so for the top layer, we've got a situation where, whoops, I see a bug here. Let me get rid of this. There was some discussion as to whether I needed another one of those for the next layer, but as it turns out, I didn't. Anyway, so when we get to the top layer here, there's a potential that the top layer, or base plus 3, is all crystal. Now, if that happens, what you've got to do is make a layer with some random shapes. If you look out and zoom out, you can see I've got just a pipeline with some random shapes coming up this way. And that way, if the top layer is all crystal, then I can create a layer, and I'm not even creating a whole layer. I'm creating one shape that is pin pushed in one quad, because that's all it takes to crystallize an entire layer. So if I drop one pin on top, in other words, I create a pin pushed single quadrant, this will be disabled at this point. This would not flow through. And then it comes over here to the stacker, drops that on top of the previous layer, and that becomes a pin sticking out of the top. And then when you crystallize it, then you'll get that top layer crystal, the one you want. And so that is how I handle the top crystallization. So right now, Op 0, Op 1 are handling your run-of-the-mill shapes very nicely, and then they're also handling the edge cases of drop pins, pins sticking out of the top, and also top crystals, which is one of the full layer crystals, and top full layer crystals, which is not probably the more complex things you can do on the regular game. If you're on hard and insane, then you got to worry about split crystals, and I've started to go into a dive down that rabbit hole. Let me see if I just want to show you kind of where I'm working on with that and a little scratch pad down here. So I've been working on a little scratch pad where trying to figure out the behavior of crystals and how they actually interface and work. Like certain crystal assortments aren't going to be possible to make. Like I can make these because it's easy. You just write out what you want, but they can't be made, at least to my knowledge right now, because of the way crystals, the limitations on crystals. That's why I put a question mark. If you think you can figure out a way to make those, you let me know, but I don't think you can. So what we're really looking for is to try to handle cases like this, where you have half crystal on one side and half crystal on the other side, which is not too terribly bad. Um, you just have to create a crystal, slice it down the line that the crystal was made, and then recrystallize with another color. Now, if you're going to make a crystal with nothing on the other side, you're just going to slice it once, all right, and create that. Now, if you're going to make a quarter, you got to slice it twice, and so that's what this little arrangement did right here, just to do it. So that's fine, and manually creating this stuff is not all that hard, but trying to create logic to detect these cases and then handle it is a little bit more difficult. So the first step of this process was just figuring out if you have nulls and crystals existing on the same layer, because that's kind of what's going to be one of the driving edge cases for this right here. And so once you get that, and I couldn't make this any more compact, my head started hurting after a while. This is about as tight as I could get it. Um, just a couple more tools and we could really shrink down the size of these logic trees. So anyways, working on that, but haven't made much progress on it, and I really don't think I need to, because for the normal game, I don't think they're throwing you these cases here where you have dual crystallized colors or colors with uh, empty spaces and crystals on the same layer. I have not seen any of those yet. Maybe they pop up later. I don't think so though. Well, I'll let you know if they do. And so these are just some other scratch pad stuff that I was doing. This is where I was working on my sacrificial layer. So I keep things for just working on stuff like that so I can figure it out later. That's what these tasks were for, was just cleaning up some of the tasks that I had. I thought I unpinned those. So with the tasks that I have yet to do, I thought I had them all finished, but evidently I didn't. I got a couple of this crystal peeling and push and fill. This one I should already be doing. This one I think I can do already. But machines the way they exist won't make those right now. All right, so I have to, that's kind of why I was working on those different cases down there, was for those last remaining tasks. So that's the general overview on the Make Anything machines as they exist right now. They're pretty all-purpose. So far, they're hanging tough. If I encounter cases where they don't work, I'll revisit it. I went back and made a couple of milestones, just because, and I'll show those to you real quick. I think this was it MS10. Yeah, I think MS10 came out looking pretty cool. I was able to leverage um, the new multi-layer aspects of this, and I think that came out looking really tough. So milestone 10 there is cranking out um, pretty much just a full saturated belt. And wow, that just looks tough. I think it's almost like a spaceship, but I'll do a little slow run. Slow my camera down. Tell you what, this is worth its own little like cinematic video. So give me a second to do this. Camera speed, I'll take that down to like 10%. I think that'll work. Yeah. All right, here we go. Oh, I forgot it won't let you move when the cursor's off the screen. Yeah, it'll take me a little while to get used to the fact that I've got 3 levels to work with on this, but I put it to good use on this milestone just to get everything painted and crystallized. There you go. So if you want a little more detail on that, this is my, oops, boy, that makes it rugged. This is a mass crystallizer. In other words, it will handle 4 full belts, and then I made 3 of them to handle 12 full belts. Which is pretty awesome. And then they all pipe together. Let's get back up in here. Give a quick recap. I owe some of my subs a more in-depth video on the painting process, and I'll do that in a separate video here real shortly, like right after I get done getting this one out. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, just hit me up. I like talking about the game and trying to explore new things. So I'll see you guys later. Happy New Year.